Team building, we're going to actually do our very first team building exercise.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, so I need everybody to stand up. Now this is a Masonic thing, because we're going to keep a circle.
So we're not going to square off a rectangle?
No, we're in a circle because we're going to be circumscribed. So as best a circle as we can get.
Okay.
Circle.
All right.
With the cheers noise.
Well, as best as we can get. Okay, so we're in a loose oval. We'll get there. I'm a math guy, sorry. Circle things. So, what I want you to do, our task is, number one, you're going to point across the circle. I'm going to point at somebody. He's going to point to someone else. And they are your mentor. You're going to do exactly what that person you point at does. You must point at somebody that's already not been pointed at, so sooner or later we get done. And then I will tell us the task that we are to do. So I'm going to point across it. Angelo over there, he's my mentor. Angelo, point at somebody else until the last person's pointing back at me.
My mentor.
No, you got to keep pointing.
Yeah, I was going to say,
okay.
losing track of it. Apparently I'm out of the mix.
No, there you go.
There you
Oh.
Now you point right back at me. Now our task is not to move. You do exactly what your mentor did.
Our task is not.
And the one we're pointing at is our mentor.
See, now you should be saying, whoever's pointing at, oh, our task is not to move.
Our task is not to move.
Our task is not to move.
Yes, our task is not to move.
Whoever next needs to say that?
Exactly, because your mentor said it, right?
Yeah. Who are you pointing at?
He's our mentor.
Say something.
So whatever your mentor's doing, you have to follow on.
Our task is not to move.
Our task is not to move.
All right, go ahead and put your fingers down. The whole point of this exercise, it's called the blame game. Who messed up? Who was the first person to mess up?
Who's he pointing at?
The first person that messed up. Who was the first person to start screwing up and started moving, said something or did something?
Yes, I did.
You instructed me. Hey, maybe it was me. I was confused.
But you see what's getting at her. No, it's you, no, it's him, no, it's him.
Point at someone different.
The blame game. Right? How often does that happen? The blame game.
Consistently.
So the reality is that he did the right thing right away. He says, well, I was the one that said it first, because he repeated what I said, but it was after I gave the instructions, so guess what? It starts going, it
Oh,
starts
you missed the
going.
most important thing you're going to get out of here tonight.
See ya.
Blame game. Blame game.
Did y'all pass around a word or something?
The whole purpose of this is that if one person says the buck stops here, guess what? It stops. You can make a change in your lodge. Doesn't matter, you've got a lot of people to change, but it's going to start somewhere. You can throw the blame around all you want, but you know what? You don't have to pass it on.
What'd you do, Dan? Messed up.
So that's the point of the blame game. It's one of these little team building exercises. If you look at 195 and on in your books, there's a whole thing on how to build teams. You just kind of work with your small groups. So what's the first group you want to start with? What's the first group that you can start with as a junior warden coming in or senior warden coming in? Who are the people you're going to work with closest?
Stewards.
You're a worshipful master, senior
That'd be the
warden.
more important way.
I call it what? The five horsemen, so if you've heard me call it again, right? You got your junior warden, senior warden, right? Your senior and junior deacons, and your, well, secretary or treasurer, but, you know, those guys, if you can get a team built there, then you can start branching out. Because whatever you do with those 5 guys will affect the rest of your lodge. And you want to affect them with good things, right? Passing on good things, setting a great example of how to work together as Masons, because what is that? The trowel deal?
Spreads that cement.
Yes,
Cement that bonds us.
Yeah, what is it? And emulates that what? Those who can work. Exactly. Well, all these things are, you know, as tools and implements, communicate, right? All these little things, right? It's really cool how they all tie in together, and all you gotta do is think about those little things. I did an exercise, team building exercise in my lodge because I had an issue, generational issue. Older guys want to go hold on and not change anything, new guys want to go somewhere else, right? So I said, okay, we're gonna line up this giant rope along the middle of my lodge and said, okay, old guys, pick up that end. New guys, pick up that end. What happens to the middle?
Suffers through it. Pulled back.
Drags on the ground, right?
He gets pulled through.
Someone
the
has to be
workout.
spread out along that whole thing. It's a gentle starting motion. Without the guys, the old guys to anchor it, what happens to the rope? It falls free and you just drift off into nowhere land, right? So they learned that holding that, so these little exercises will help. And you can do them as lodging, as entertainment even. But the people get a practical lesson out of it. They actually pick it up and go, wow. The blame game's another one. It's really easy to do. All those are kind of lined out and there's a bunch of different exercises. I want to start this off as something you can do. It doesn't take a lot of forethought. Really simple, and it starts getting people on the same set. Hey, one person can make a change. All right, so you get to have a seat now.
Thank you.
So what was that thing called we just did?
The blame.
The blame game, right? Team building exercises. There's a whole bunch of them. Like I said, over half that resources in the back is all on team building. All right, the purpose of this is to discuss the importance of team building, all right? Relationship between the leader and building a cohesive team. The first team you're going to be worried about, especially as a senior warden, or as you're going through, is going to be your leadership team. You know, when you become worshipful master, it's going to be your senior warden, junior warden, and deacons, treasurer, and secretary, all right? Those guys you got to bond into a team, all right? Team is a group of individuals who have the same work activities. You're all Masons, right? You're all interested in the good of the lodge, right? And if each one of you does your own thing, what happens?
Nothing is done.
Nothing, right? Because everybody else is going to emulate your leadership team. Which is what? If they all go in a different direction, what are they going to do?
Go a different
They're all
direction.
going to go in a different direction.
Or go nowhere.
For you to move forward to your goal, you all have to work together. So, what we want to cover today is to be familiar with the different stages of team development, and there's reasons for this. You're going to run into different situations you never think you'll run into as building teams. Understand the activities and roles of the leader in each one of these stages, what you as a leader are responsible to do. And for some of you guys who are going to be followers, you'll know your part, right? Because being a leader, you also have to be a what? You're going to be able to follow, right? All right, so the stages are forming, storming, norming, performing, and transforming. Yes, if you've seen this before, hold it to yourself. Forming stage, this is on orientation, getting to know your brothers. How many people really know their junior or senior wardens? How about your junior and senior deacon? As a junior warden, when you're going into your worshipful master, who are you putting in charge? Who are you putting into the line? In most lodges around here. Who's the one person you're going to be putting in the new leadership line? That only you have a say, so.
Maybe the senior deacon?
Junior deacon or maybe even senior deacon, right? Who really has to work with him?
Your let's see that.
Your junior warden or senior deacon, right? They have to live with him for how many years? 3, maybe 2 years? How long do you have to live with him as senior warden? 1 year, does he play a crucial role?
All right.
So who should you ask? When you junior ward, how many junior wardens I got in here? Wouldn't you like to have a say of who you get to have as your senior warden?
That'd be nice.
Yeah. It might be nice.
You can maybe communicate better or flow
Might
better.
communicate, would it be nice
work
to get to
better.
know him?
That would be beneficial.
Yeah, so your senior warden's you're planning for a future of the lodge, right? How far in the future are you planning for your lodge? This is a trick question.
3 years out.
Yeah, at least
Forever.
3.
Oh, there, that's a great answer.
Forever.
I know what you was thinking. I was thinking the same thing. 3 years. Like, who do you want
You're
you
gonna
guys
leave
your
an
officers?
impression, I guess. So.
So you're planning for forever. You want to build a team that's going to continue to move on, continue to grow, to get better. Which means if you're building a football team and you're at the draft, who are you going to draft onto your team as your newest member? You're going to grab the guy that just happens to be the only one left available for the cheapest? Which one are you going to pick?
You get the guy that you think is best suited for the job you got for him.
Bingo. The mindset has to change sometimes. You can't always go, well, he's been a Mason for 25 years. He deserves to be worshipful master. That brings your lodge in a situation of peril. You really need to think this through because he's going to be a leader, right? You put him in that spot. Now, one of the things that we do at our lodge is kind of strange, but it works, is we had a problem with our master masons bleeding. Means they become the master of the lodge and then leave. We never see them again. Like, whoa, wait, how many past masters you got showing up? Well, I haven't seen one since 1970.
Like a UFO just sucks some out of that. I don't know.
So we came to the point where, okay, so if you're going into the worshipful master spot, then you're responsible to make sure that the guy that you put into the line makes it through to worshipful master. You're his leadership mentor until he completes his worshipful master year. So, Brian, when you get ready to leave as worshipful master, guess what? You have to stay involved for how many more years? 4 more years, and you're going to drag whoever you stuck in as senior deacon, junior deacon. You're going to make sure that his calendar's squared away, that he knows how to do a budget, that he's financed, that he shows up at one of these, that he gets the education he needs, because you're planning for your lodge to last forever. And when you do that, you start building this expectations. Hey, you're expected to last through this whole thing. Realize I pick you for senior deacon, you're going to be here for how long?
So does that mean I get to go hunt down my master when I first came in? Going into You're coming back!
You see what I'm getting at, though? And remember, blame game.
So it's important to work with your worshipful master and the one for them.
Yeah.
So because he's kind of picking your line too.
Exactly.
So it's very important to work. I mean, like my goal is to have.
But remember the blame game. Each one of you can be that change if you have to be. You don't have to wait. You can start it with you. All right? So that's the key. All right. So in the forming stage, guess what? The leader is extremely involved. This is your biggest work portion. Because you got to fill out those expectations. What is this? What do you expect your senior warden to do? What is the junior warden supposed to do? What is the secretary supposed to do? What's the treasurer supposed to do? Now, the secretary is going to try and tell you, don't worry about me, I got my job squared away. I'm the secretary.
Yeah.
Worshipful master, you're responsible for what the secretary does. So, what you're going to get yelled at for, you better make sure he understands. That 990 needs to be squared away, get it to the treasurer so he's ready to send it in. Guess what? You also have the temple board underneath you. Not really, you don't have control, but guess what? You're going to get yelled at if that 990 doesn't get sent in. It won't be the temple board president. Grand Master can come looking for you guys. So, you need to outline those procedures, those things, how you want to work things out. Now, you start off with outlines, you're doing all the outlining. That's not the way it continues on. Right? You need to communicate your expectations. What's the best way to communicate something? Anybody in my communications class? Nobody came into that one? You write the message down.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say you communicated in a loud voice.
Communicate in a loud voice 3 inches from their ear. Write it down. Write it down. Expectations need to be written down because then there can be a little less confusion. Talk to them about it. Get their feedback. Make sure that, okay, when I meant set up the lodge, I meant the day before lodge starts, not 5 minutes after we're supposed to start. Right? Do we understand that? That means it includes all these things because you're talking to your senior and junior deacons, right? It's supposed to be, you know, all the paraphernalia's out, ready to go to open lodge. Make sure you check the agenda because if we're doing a memorial, what do you have to do? All that's your responsibility. Then you go talk to your junior warden and say, I know you also got the stewards, right? Make sure that the meal's ready to go. That's your job. It's written down in there. You're supposed to track all the stewards' funds. I mean, depending on your lodge, it may be different. Senior warden, guess what? If the deacons don't have it set up, it's your fault. Because he's supposed to help you open and close the lodge, right? Can't open the lodge if, oops, they forgot the Bible. Or a few times, square and compass. It happens. And the other thing is remember, you don't jump down people's throats when they do make a mistake, because they're going to make a mistake. Learn, now, establish ground rules. All right? You want to have one voice coming out of your leadership team, right? Everybody should be speaking the same. So, because what you're going to have is the stewards are going to come and say one thing. If you're going to plan a meal, then they'll go tell the junior warden, right? The junior warden will say something. The stewards will come back and change the plan, and then suddenly you'll show up. You know, it's your March meeting. You plan to have corned beef and cabbage, and then you have, you know, feijoada, and you're like, this is not, you know, feijoada is a Brazilian food. Because they think they're celebrating, you know, Carnival. Oops. Right? It happens in March too sometimes. So, you know, you have these issues. So, what are the ground rules? What's the communication plan for you guys? How are you going to tell each other to change? So these are the little things, you know. How about when you have bills? What's the ground rules? Bills that aren't on the budget. You're supposed to review them and sign off on them before. You know, in our bylaws for my lodge, junior and senior warden have to sign off on any non-budgetary bills before they get paid. To make sure it's, you know, a legit bill, you know. Okay? Now, has anybody heard the charge to the master? I love this thing. It's awesome. Let's see. It says leadership is comparatively simple, but it requires constant exertion, a clear understanding of the principles and tenets of the fraternity, and through knowledge and observation of the laws and regulations, be cautious in your behavior, courteous to your brethren, and faithful to your lodge. Visit the sick and afflicted, and tender them sympathy and relief. Become well acquainted with each member of your lodge. Study his nature. Be ready to give due praise to his earnest efforts, and to guide him in case of error. Familiar yourself with the Masonic code of this jurisdiction, and thoroughly commit to standard work. So, learn about each one of your members, especially your leadership team. Know what their weaknesses are. Know what their strengths are. Use their strengths. Grow their weakness into strengths. You know, some people, we all know that one guy shows up 2 minutes before the meeting. Well, there's ways to working through that. But expect it. Don't walk in and go, well, you know, I picked him and he's going to show up 2 minutes before the meeting, and plan like he's not going to show up 2 minutes before the meeting. There's no backup for him. You have to be ready for that. You have to address it in the expectations. Right? And you want each one of your team members to learn about each other. Provide opportunities for acquaintance. You know, My last master invited his entire officer team out over to his house for his lodge officers meeting. We sit out in the back porch. We talk about the meetings, and he passes out cigars and breaks out a bottle of brandy and says, okay, you know, anything else you guys want to talk about? It's just his way of doing things. Doesn't mean that's the right way, but you know, he gets really good attendance. Everybody shows up. Setting ground rules. There's a task, a process, and norms. All right? Tasks with the expectation was each member bring the table, how will tasks be assigned. Processes are how you do it and what is the standard. There's a standard. Lodge will be set up and ready to go 15 minutes before lodge. Will be set up and ready to go before dinner is served. It's up to you guys to come up with those ones, right? Will the agenda be set out by you as the master so everybody knows what's going on before lodge starts? Will be a week prior. What are you going to do with trestle weeks? All these things are processes that you guys come up with together. The leadership team together can come up with the stuff, so you don't have to think about it all at once. You can start coming up with these, and then you can start building the expectations and writing them out. Okay, I'm going to take charge. Okay, I'm writing this down. You said you were going to take charge of the trestle board. Right? Norms. How will decisions be made? Problem solved. How does a team define respectful behavior? Seems weird, right? Because we have this idea of respectful behavior, right? Kind of a Masonic norm, right? People stand up whenever they address the worshipful master. They stand up whenever they speak in lodge. I don't know, it's up to your lodge, but for us, whenever you speak to the worshipful master or you're speaking to the lodge, you stand up and wait till you're recognized. That's my lodge. But guess what? My whole leadership team applies that to themselves. They set the example. So then when they have something to say, they stand up and wait until they're recognized. All right? How will you hold your team members accountable? This is the hard one. What do you do when that guy doesn't show up on time? Number one, you got to accomplish. You got to open lodge. He showed up 2 minutes late, so you have to come up with that. But then, how do you hold him accountable? This is the hard part. 2 or 3 are gathered together to go help someone out with his error of his ways. Right? Maybe you ask, well, you need to be now you need to be in charge of, you know, setting up the lodge practice. You know, you don't want to be punitive, but you want it to be an idea that maybe you make him in charge of something that he needs to get a handle on. You know, this idea of growing a new leader. All right. How will team members communicate with each other? We have phones, we have texts. My leadership team, I said I didn't care. Call me whenever you need something, period. Text me. I had you on speed dial. Make sure I had all the information on there, so when it pops up and I see, uh-oh, Gary's calling me. We're in trouble now. What do I do now? What's wrong with music in the park? Immediately I know what's going on because I know what I've assigned. The storming stage. This is on the clarification. What happens, you start clarifying those norms. You start clarifying those duties and responsibilities, right? What happens? Well, I got confused. I didn't understand the instructions. Right? So maybe we need to rehash our communication guidelines. I don't need to be emailed every 5 minutes about what's going on at Music in the Park. You know, you don't have to tell me you sold 3 Snickers bars. Right? We need to adjust these things. This is where you make your adjustments. The bad one is down there at the bottom. Surface, mediate, resolve conflicts. Are you sure team members' behavior is normal? Because guess what? The storming phase is normal. How many people got kids? Anybody got kids here? Do kids push the limit? Guess what? You're all brothers. Do brothers push the limits? Yes, they do. We wouldn't be human. Now we're supposed to right? We're supposed to temper our passions, or subdue our passions, right? Be prudent, temperate, and discreet. But these are the kind of behaviors that you can expect. They will happen. Backbiting, the blame game. Not so much bullying. I haven't seen much of that. Although I've heard it happens. Discounting, what's that? Discounting.
Not giving credence to what someone's saying or
Yeah,
not
your idea sucks.
Yeah.
And everybody's had that happen to them, haven't they? You come up with this idea, and before you can even get it out of your mouth, they're already saying, no, we tried that. Doesn't work.
You hear that in this last meeting when people come back on this idea.
So you need to come up with tactics that are gonna take care of that. Everybody has the right to speak. Go ahead and say your entire thing. You know, when he's done, okay, what are the merits and what are the, it may be a terrible idea. I think we should do a 10-speed jumping contest on the roof of the building. Right? That's a terrible idea, right? But, okay, now what are the benefits and the detractors? Well, you know, the insurance is gonna go way up, right? We're gonna have a lot of members in a hospital. Maybe we shouldn't do this idea. But the brother gets a chance to talk, right? And that's really important, because if you want them to feel part of the team, you can't discount all their ideas. Because pretty soon what's gonna happen?
He's gonna quit talking.
He's never gonna say anything. Then when you're driving your truck, talking to him, you know, you're headed toward that cliff, he's not gonna say anything, because you're just gonna discount his idea as you fly off the cliff, right? Dominating, that's what I'm doing right now, right? I'm not gonna let anybody speak. Any guys have that happening in your table lodges?
Guys running over each other, talking.
Guy's got an idea and he says it, but then he won't let it go and just keeps saying it over, and over again, and won't let anybody else's idea come forward. Right? It happens. How are you going to address that? Okay, you've had your say, you know, you gavel them down. Okay, next person. What's your idea? No, you've already restated that. You know, let's get a fresh idea. You know, excluding. How many people have been excluded from a meeting or felt excluded? That's almost kind of like discounting, you're pushing that one person off, or we won't tell that person about the meeting because he'll object to it, so we just won't tell him so he doesn't show up. Everybody's heard that happen before to somebody. Then you have those two that never get along, shooting. Some people like to joke so they never have to say anything. I'm just going to be the jokester in the classroom. I'm going to always be joking so I don't ever get asked a question or I don't have to put input. You got the naysaying, and one thing is non-participating. What do you do with that guy that's always so nervous that he never wants to, what did I just keep saying?
Call on you.
You can call on him. Hey, so what do you think?
Bolster.
To be honest, most of the time, once he comes up with an idea that works, you know, hey, it's a good idea. You can also congratulate him, bring him more into the fold. Give him tasks that require him to actually participate. No. I need you to write the ideas down on the board. You know, something, it's kind of a, you know. Now, then we get to the norming phase. The big thing for the leader, supporting members in their emerging roles, because people are going to have to change roles sometimes. Now, maybe not roles as far as the lodge. You're not going to say, well, junior ward and senior ward to switch. No, that's not what I mean.
It's gonna call me up.
What I mean is, you know, you seem to have a better connection with these two stewards than you do, so maybe we'll adjust that. Or, you know, things like that, you can adjust that stuff. It's within your prerogative as worshipful master. Maybe, you know, since the senior warden can't get there on time, the junior warden may introduce the lodge is set up. And you have to make sure the meals are square. It may be a slight role change, that's okay. As long as the team functions together and is on the same sheet of music at the end. Right? Listening and summarizing agreements. Why do you have to do that?
To increase the understanding of what I'm asking you to do by delivering it by a certain date. So avoid confusion.
Avoiding confusion, we're getting it back to that. Listening and summarizing. Okay, so what you're saying is we're going to agree to listen to others, summarize their agreements, and then make sure that that's our one message that we're sending forward and launched. That's all it really is. You're restating it so everybody has the same idea that includes everybody's ideas. You're actually getting buyback from your subordinates or your peers. Because are you willing to follow an idea if it's partially your input? Yeah, I'm going to buy into this. I'm going to work with it. You know, I was part of the planning thing. I helped make the calendar. Right? I helped make the rules.
The bicycles.
The bicycles, yeah. Yep, I made the rules for jumping off the roof of bicycles.
That was mine.
That was Dan's idea. All right. So here's one. How do you engage participants in creative thinking? You have discussions like you've done here. The little questions open in your table lodges. Guess what? They're actually building a team in here. Because all you guys are going to be peers going through the office. Guess what? Grand Lodge is team building. All our masters and junior wards and senior wards, senior deacons are all going to be coming from these rooms that we've had. So guess what? That open discussion brings similar ideas. Guess what? We start getting a similar message out to people. That one person can make a change. That you guys are the change in the future of Grand Lodge. That's pretty cool. Right? Individual writing, I hate that one because I'm a math guy. I don't write. Spelling, you know, all that stuff. I have to have spell check and someone else reads it, so I do it. I write message for communication and I hand it around to all my officers and say, read it, make sure I didn't make any stupid mistakes. All right? Brainstorming, idea listing, generating clusters, that's all fancy ways of organizing different ideas. All right? I don't have an idea what the museum tour is.
I was going to ask him that.
Now, what it is you take your different events and then walk them through like it's a movie. You're walking each little block. This is what we're going to do here. This is our museum tour. In this room, we're going to talk about doing these things. So at this meeting, this is going to be our theme, right? And these are all the different activities we can do along with it. So it's that kind of idea for this month. That's what we're going to be doing. All right, we're going to focus on these things, you know, whether it's visitation, you know. We're going to visit every lodge in our district in 1 month. Okay, that one. But then you get to performing phase. Now you're going to struggle through the storming and norming and performing. It's going to cycle through those. Because guess what? Halfway through the year, what happened? What happened today? Look how many people we have in this room. What happened today? You get tired. So guess what? You have to go back to this storming phase because so-and-so's tired now. He's, instead of showing up 15 minutes early, he's showing up 5 minutes early because he has it down pat. Then it happens. No. I forgot your apron. We all know this stuff has happened in lodge. You're sitting there, or you show up and they open up that door for the enterprise degree and go, uh-oh. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not right, right? Because we've decided we didn't need to rehearse because we've done it so many times. You've let the standards slip a little bit because you've done it so many times. We've done 20 EAs this year, you know? I wish.
Complacent behavior.
It's human nature. So you're gonna go through this storming and norming. The performing stage is the easy part. Everybody knows what they're doing, they're just driving along doing it. Chug it, chug it, chug it, chug it. They show up for your meeting on time, they go through it and walk through the agenda, your meetings last 20 minutes.
You got that out with almost a straight face.
Right? They're out there encouraging and mentoring other people. They're building the team within the lodge because people are starting to emulate them. Right? This may only last like 2 meetings, and then you'll go back to storming and norming phase, right? It goes through cycles like this over and over again. Now, rapid. I like this one. The rapid tool. You can find this on, hold on, let me grab my page number.
151.
Did I write it on there? Rapid tool? No, it's 255. Go to the back real quick, 255. It's kind of spelled out here. It's a little cross-shaped thing, right? It's kind of a neat way to do decision-making process with a group of people. All right? They make recommendations, you know, we have this problem, there's recommendations how to solve the problem, right? You get input from each person. All right? Each person gets a little bit of input. And then they agree or disagree. How many people does it take to agree for you to go forward with it? Is it all of them? 4 of them? 5? You guys need to make this decision yourself, right? But then you decide, once you made the decision, guess what you do? You perform, because after the decision's been made, you keep going back, you never get anything started, right? And it's kind of like the way this works in Lodge too, right? Let's see. I make a proposal, right? Does anybody have it? Someone seconds it, right? Then what do? Yeah. Well, we can discuss any discussion on the matter. People put input. You don't want to rattle them down because then you'd be what? You'd be discounting them, right? Or excluding them, right? So they get to put their information out. Okay, at a certain point, people start repeating themselves, so you don't want them to dominate it, so you wrap them down. Okay, we've had enough discussion. Let's see how many people agree. Once the lodge is voted, they decide, guess what? It's not personal, they're going along with the lodge's decision. Right? The lodge's decision. You can do the same thing with your team. Sometimes, though, as master, guess what? Whose ultimate responsibility? The master. Right? So, no matter what they decide, guess where the buck stops? You're it. Transforming stage. We kind of go through this, we lose one member and then pick up a new member. Now I talked about how to get through this transforming stage a little bit easier. What do we got to do? How do you keep the worshipful master from disappearing after he gets out?
Mentorship.
Mentorship. And that worshipful master, no, worshipful master, you're a past master, but now you need to mentor the guy you put in my line. Help me get him through until he's worshipful master. So it makes this transforming stage a lot easier. Because guess what? His junior warden went through the same thing you did when you were forming. He should have a template. Here's what your expectations are. Mine will be just a little bit different because we agreed, right? We sat down and agreed what the expectations should be, so it's not going to be that much different unless it really didn't work. You know, that's okay. If it didn't work, don't do it again. You know? Okay, look, we found out after we wrecked 10 speeds, you can't run 10 speeds off the roof of the building, right? It doesn't work, so we're going to try big wheels. The whole point is don't do something that fails every year, right? If your team building is not working that way, if those norms aren't being met or those expectations can't be met, you know, we're gonna raise $10,000 this year. Some lodges could actually do that. Maybe your lodge can't. Maybe you make that a more normal number so people don't feel so stressed. you know, here's a point, nobody used, don't tell her, if you see Angela, don't tell her I used her. She works for H&R Block. They do a lot of phone calls to get, you know, past customers to come back, right? And then they have to do thank you calls. Well, each call takes about 3 minutes to do, right? She has 3 phone lines in her office. Me being a math guy, I calculated out. It's, you know, giving someone time to go use the restroom and stuff, that's about 54 calls an hour. They gave her 5 days to complete 1,600 phone calls. This does not compute. You can't do it. So your expectations may have to change from year to year. The reality means you may not be able to get there from here. So pick those expectations that are actually achievable. Don't worry about them adjusting. As the past master, you're the best guy for the information. You say, guess what? You need to change that one because this ain't going to happen. You think it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen. All right? Recognition and celebrations. This is kind of cool. As you're the outgoing guy, right? A lot of lodges do things like the Hiram Award, things like that. Somebody that's been excelling in your lodge, really helping out. Maybe it might be the past master that just left. He did a hell of a job supporting you, and maybe he took on a project that was huge. This is where you want to reward those people that have done excelled for you. Now it's kind of funny because we have this thing where, well, I'm going to give all my new officers this pen set. You know, my new officers, this pen sets. The guy that's going out that really worked his butt off. Can you imagine your senior warden was your right-hand man? And he really busted his butt because say maybe you spent 3 days, 4 days in the hospital, and he went and made an event actually work for you. You know, giving kudos and open a lodge is awesome. Give them where they're due. Senior wardens, what are you supposed to do?
Pay wages.
Pay wages if ought be due, that none go away dissatisfied. Harmony being strength and support of all institutions, more especially. And you want to tell that story. What did he do? Now, sometimes it's fun to exaggerate, so go for it. It makes an experience for the rest of the lodge. And it can make it a humorous anecdote for later on, you know. Remember that time you were out there holding down the cover out there of Music in the Park and we had the tornado coming through and you stayed out there with all our really blown out proportion. We had a storm blow through. He tore it all down, shoved it inside the trailer and anchored the trailer down and weighted it out and reset it back up. But, you know, you can kind of, he did that by himself. I can really blow that up. And your lodge members will remember it. It'll become a new story to tell in lodge. Yeah. So the big one here is be familiar with what's going to happen as you go through your stages of team development. Forming, what do you have to do? What's your big project in forming? Who is your team? Who are they? 5 guys? Who are they really? Yeah, but who are they really? What makes Brian tick?
Don't do that to Brian, he'll blow up.
Exactly. What makes Brian tick? What does Brian really like to do? Brian loves to build parade floats. Brian, build parade floats. That's awesome. We're going to have him build a parade float, right? And we're not going to make, you know, was it Mike over there? We're not going to make Mike build a parade float because he's not into that. Ukulele, there you go. You can leave the ukulele man. Right? Right? And then you have your norms. What does norm mean? Anybody remember? You can look at your notes. 91, you know, you can look back at that stuff. norming, that's finding out what the rules really are, right? We had expectations in the forming, right? Expectations, what you're supposed to do, but norming is readjusting those things. Because we found out that he likes to do floats, but he can't work with power tools. So we had, we had to have Dan come in and take over the power tool operation because after Brian screwed himself to the float 3 times, it's becoming an issue, right?
Forming it out of marzipan.
Yeah, exactly. So these things, you're going to have to do this in the norming stage. It's going to be that readjustment of what happens. Then you have the storming stage. That's when we're in here teaching class and we start goofing off more than we are actually learning. Right? We lose touch. Right? And the final one there, you guys should all be able to read that one. One person can make a difference. It takes one person to start the team building process. It takes more than one person to form a team. But you guys have to start the team building process. If you don't already have one back there, you can start now. It's just like the blame game. You can go there and blame the worshipful master for not having a team, but who can stop the blame game? The individual. You just, the buck stops there, I'm not going to pass it on. We're going to fix it. And unfortunately, it can be painful. But guess what? If you build your team, it'll be a lot less painful. You know, I had a rough time starting my team in my lodge, but you know what was really nice? I wasn't wore out at the end of my master's year. Because I had a junior warden that would do his part, I had a senior warden that would do his part, I had senior and junior deacons that were taking care of planning, degrees. By the time I got done, I just had to show up. My agenda started working. Yeah, there's a rule of thumb. I'm a military guy, Rogers Rangers. You know, his rule is if you need it, check it. It doesn't absolve you from supervising, right? You know, if you need it, check it. It means if the lodge is supposed to be ready, it might behoove you to look in the room and go, okay, yes, it is ready, long enough advance for him to do it. But you don't. It's not like you have to go in there and set it up yourself. You know, and that's what the whole purpose of the team is. You want to build a team that can function where I can send Brian off on a fire and forget mission. I can send David off. I want you to go do this and take care of it. And you understand what I want done, and guess what? It happens. And I may have to come back and say, well, you know, that's not exactly what I want, but guess what? It takes us 3 minutes to fix that. It doesn't take me to start all over and do it myself. Because if you try and do it all by yourself,
You'll exhaust yourself.
you'll exhaust yourself, and guess what? You won't come back next year. You'll be that master that bleeds away and leaves. Oh, any questions? On team building, I made that mistake. If Jesus had a dog, what was his name? That was from an instructor certification school in the military. Any questions? And the drill sergeant in the back raised that hand up and said, if Jesus had a dog, what was his name? Had nothing to do with what I was talking about.
What's the name, Pandora?
His whole point was make sure you preference how you want people to ask questions. Communicate effectively.
I was going to say, actually, one of the things that our outgoing master, Jerry Parton, did, he and Don Wells started this too. So they started having, yeah, I know. But Jerry was a brilliant suggestion. It started with me and Don, but we were having in August, before we were coming back from the fall, we would have a meeting between basically junior deacon, senior warden, and the outgoing worshipful master for that year. Would meet, have barbecue, and talk amongst the group of 5, basically saying, this is what's going on. So we established that continuity because the plan ends up becoming more than any one of us' plan. It's a work is shared, and people are able to coordinate and triangulate as they're going through this journey
The thing
together.
is
which
what happens to you
tremendous
as a master
mastery.
if you can't show up for a meeting? Well, junior ward's or senior ward's job to step in, right? Well, if he knows where you're going because you've been communicating him in these lodge meetings, this is where we're supposed to be, this is the general direction I want to go in. He's not gonna make a decision that's, 90 degrees to where you guys wanted the lodge to go. He's gonna be on the same sheet of music going in one direction.
As like I said, it's just a tremendous time saver too, because you're not having to rehash certain stuff. It's like everybody's discovering it every time they come through. It's like, no, we already have our arc. We know how we're taking this. We also talk amongst people, because we all know the brethren in the lodge, and there's a big discussion about, well, who's going to be the junior deacon? Who do we want to pick? And then it's not just a single per everybody's getting their input.
Now,
And it's a good way of doing it.
Now, as far as this transforming stage, when you're moving on to that next stage, new masters coming in, one of the unique ideas, well, it's not really unique, I just took it from the military when I came in. When I left as master, I took care of all the installation requirements for my new incoming master. And the change in commands in the military, it's the outgoing guy that's responsible for the entire ceremony, up until the point where he says you're in charge. After that, it's the new guy. So, I mean, making sure that you have the right people for installation, the right people there to do the installation, all right? Making sure that you have people to set up and tear down. All that's done, and all say, the new guy has to come in as, step in, take over the lodge, and run the rest of the meeting, and then he's done. He may do the refreshments afterwards, because, that's up to him and his decorations, but it takes a load off of his mind, because he's coming in, when you're coming into, your eyes are big right now. Oh man, installation is huge. That's a good tradition. We've really latched on to it, actually. It really works. I mean, the outgoing guy is in charge of making sure all that's together. He still talks to the incoming guy, because you might want a specific person to install you. But remember that you're supposed to ask the outgoing master first. He's going to install it. That's a courtesy.
There's a lot to emulate it.
Well, because there's a lot to not emulate. Don't emulate the stuff, some of the rough patterns that we run into too. Everybody runs into those rough patterns. Just, for some reason I attract rough patterns. We have a good time. We're all good brothers here. And I'm really, really excited to see all you guys that are interested in your lodges. And you all want to make it better. That's the cool part. Y'all want to have a better lodge, but it's true. And you just got to carry that same attitude with your leadership team that you're going to build. Because I know you guys will build good teams. And that's just it. Don't try and do it by yourself, because guess what? You don't have enough hours in a day. Take a look at the back of this book. There's a lot of really cool stuff in the very back. All sorts of nice team building things. And you can use those as exercises in your life. Nice little cool ones. Some of them are just kind of, but still. Getting people to work together is always a good thing, because that's what we do as Masons, right? All right. The other social hour, right? Another social hour. Guys.
Another team building exercise.
Another team building exercise, because you're going to get to know who?
The guy next to you.
Exactly. It's kind of neat. We do it across our district, so all the junior wardens and senior wardens in our district actually go through another conference like this. And we expect them to show up at each other's meetings, all their installations. So it's kind of cool. You go to installation, you see 5 other lodges show up to every installation. That's cool. And they're all interested in what other people are doing. When they have a special event, guess what? Another lodge will show up and help them out. That's kind of neat. All right.
Great.
Nice to meet you guys. I hope to see you again.